Antarctica is administered by approximately 30 countries, all of which are signatories to the Antarctic Treaty System of 1959. Military action, mining, nuclear explosions, and nuclear waste dumping are all prohibited in Antarctica under the terms of the treaty. Hello and welcome to KYC News. In this episode, we will discuss Antarctica in detail. Stay tuned. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon. Antarctica. Antarctica is the world's most southern and least populated continent. The geographic South Pole is located almost entirely south of the Antarctic Circle and is bordered by the Southern Ocean. Antarctica is the fifth largest continent, with an area of 14,200,000 square kilometers, 5,500,000 square miles, roughly 40% larger than Europe. The Antarctic ice sheet covers the majority of Antarctica, with an average thickness of 1.9 kilometers, 1.2 miles. Antarctica has the highest average elevation and is the coldest, driest, and windiest of the continents. It is primarily a polar desert, with yearly precipitation exceeding 200 millimeters, 8 in, around the shore and much less inland. Antarctica holds around 70% of the world's freshwater reserves, which if melted would raise global sea levels by nearly 60 meters, 200 feet. Antarctica has the record for the lowest observed temperature on the planet, 89.2 degrees Celsius. Summer temperatures in coastal areas can exceed 10 degrees Celsius, 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Mites, nematodes, penguins, seals, and tardigrades are among the native animal species. Vegetation is mainly seen in the form of lichen or moss. The Antarctic ice shelves were most likely discovered in 1820 by a Russian expedition commanded by Fabian Gottlieb von Bellingshausen and Mikhail Lazarev. French, American, and British expeditions continued to explore in the decades that followed. A Norwegian team made the first confirmed landing in 1895. There were a few trips into the continent's interior in the early 20th century. British explorers were the first to reach the magnetic South Pole in 1909, while Norwegian explorers were the first to reach the geographic South Pole in 1911. Antarctica is administered by approximately 30 countries, all of which are signatories to the Antarctic Treaty System of 1959. Military action, mining, nuclear explosions, and nuclear waste dumping are all prohibited in Antarctica under the terms of the treaty. The main human activity in and around Antarctica are tourism, fishing, and research. Approximately 5,000 people live at research stations during the summer, with a dip to around 1,000 during the winter. Despite the continent's remoteness, human activity has a substantial impact on it through pollution, ozone depletion, and climate change. Antarctica's historical background. The origins of Antarctica can be traced back to early Western conceptions of a large continent known as Terra Australis that was thought to exist in the deep south of the Earth. Marinus of Tyre created the word Antarctic, referring to the opposite of the Arctic Circle, in the 2nd century AD. The circumnavigation of the Cape of Good Hope and Cape Horn in the 15th and 16th centuries demonstrated that Terra Australis Incognita, unknown southern land, if it existed, was a separate continent. James Cook and his crew crossed the Antarctic Circle for the first time in 1773. Nevertheless, despite discovering adjacent islands, they did not see Antarctica. He may have been as near to the continent as 240 kilometers, 150 miles. On January 27, 1820, a Russian expedition commanded by Fabian Gottlieb von Bellingshausen and Mikhail Lazarev found the Fimbul ice shelf at Princess Martha Coast. Bellingshausen and Lazarev were the first to sight and formally discover the continent of Antarctica. 3 days later, on January 30th, 1820, a British expedition led by Irishman Edward Bransfield spotted Trinity Peninsula, and 10 months later, on November 17th, 1820, an American sealer Nathaniel Palmer sighted Antarctica. The initial landing was most likely made a little more than a year later by American Captain John Davis, a sealer. Several teams attempted to reach the South Pole during the heroic age of Antarctic exploration in the early 20th century. Many of these resulted in damage or death. Following a spectacular race with the Briton Robert Falcon Scott, Norwegian Roald Amundsen finally reached the pole on December 14, 1911. 10 interesting Antarctica facts. 1. Antarctica contains the majority of the world's fresh water. The huge ice sheet of Antarctica contains an astonishing 60 to 90% of the world's fresh water. The Antarctic ice sheet is the world's largest, covering 14 million square kilometers, 5.4 million square miles of Antarctic mountain ranges, valleys, and plateaus. Only 1% of Antarctica is permanently ice-free. Some regions, including many of the areas we visit on the Antarctic Peninsula, are ice-free in the summer. Antarctica's ice is 4.5 kilometers, 2.7 miles thick at its thickest point, which is half the height of Mt. Everest. If it completely melted, global sea levels would rise by approximately 60 meters, 200 feet. 2. Antarctica is a dry land. How could Antarctica be a desert with all of that fresh water stored under the ice sheet? Most people associate deserts with sand dunes and scorching temperatures, but a desert does not have to be hot or sandy. It is more about how much precipitation the area receives in the form of rain, snow, mist, or fog. A desert is defined as any area with extremely low yearly precipitation. Over the last 30 years, the average annual rainfall at the South Pole was slightly over 10 millimeters, 0.4 in. Although precipitation is higher towards the coast, the average across the continent is low enough to qualify Antarctica as a polar desert. Because there is so little rain in Antarctica, it has taken an amazing 45 million years for the ice to grow to its current thickness. Antarctica is not just one of the driest continents on the planet, but it is also the coldest, windiest, and tallest. 3. Antarctica was once as hot as Melbourne. Given that the coldest land temperature ever recorded was -89.2 degrees Celsius, -128.6 degrees Fahrenheit in Antarctica, it's difficult to envisage Antarctica as a balmy, temperate paradise. But Antarctica hasn't always been a frigid region engulfed by a vast ice sheet. Antarctica was previously nearly as warm as Melbourne is now. Temperatures in Antarctica may have reached 17 degrees Celsius, 62.6 degrees Fahrenheit 40 to 50 million years ago, according to researchers. Scientists have also discovered fossils indicating that Antarctica was once covered in lush green forests and home to dinosaurs. 4. The Antarctic Peninsula is one of the world's fastest warming regions. The Antarctic Peninsula is warming faster than many other parts of the planet. In fact, it is one of the world's fastest warming regions. Over the last 50 years, average temperatures on the Antarctic Peninsula have risen by 3 degrees Celsius, 37.4 degrees Fahrenheit, 5 times the global average. This has resulted in some alterations, such as where and when penguin colonies establish and sea ice forms. It also means that the Antarctic Peninsula's luxuriant mosses will have a somewhat extended growing season. 5. There is no time zone in Antarctica. The issue of time in Antarctica is complicated. The lines of longitude that give us distinct time zones around the world all intersect at the South Pole. The majority of Antarctica enjoys 6 months of continuous brightness in the summer and 6 months of darkness in the winter. Without the usual markers for day and night, time begins to feel a little odd. Scientists working in Antarctica typically stay in the time zone of the nation from which they departed, but this might present complications. On the Antarctic Peninsula, for example, There are stations from Chile, China, Russia, the United Kingdom, and many more countries. You can imagine how complicated it would be to try to share data and resources without accidentally waking each other up in the middle of the night if all of these neighboring stations kept to their home time zones. Unless we're visiting the Falkland Islands or South Georgia, Aurora Expeditions travelers normally adhere to Ushuaia time. Then, as we travel, we adjust to their local time. 6. Every direction is north. You are at the southernmost point on Earth if you stand at the South Pole. Every direction is north, no matter which way you look. So why do we refer to the Antarctic Peninsula as West Antarctica and the area immediately south of Australia as East Antarctica? It is based on the Prime Meridian, an imaginary line that runs through Greenwich in the United Kingdom at 0 degrees longitude. Everything to your left is West Antarctica, and everything to your right is East Antarctica if you stand at the South Pole and face Greenwich. 7. There are active volcanoes in Antarctica. There are many volcanoes in Antarctica, 2 of which are active. Mount Erebus, Antarctica's second highest volcano, is the planet's southernmost active volcano. This icebound volcano on Ross Island has some unusual features, such as ice fumaroles and twisted ice statues that grow around gases that seep from vents near the volcanic crater. Mt Erebus was first climbed in 1908 by a team led by Australian scientist Edgeworth David and featuring Douglas Mawson, who accomplished an arduous and very cold 5-day journey to the steaming crater. Deception Island, a volcanic caldera in the South Shetland Islands, is home to the second active volcano. It was once home to a prosperous whaling station and then a scientific station before being abandoned following the most recent eruption in 1969, and it is now a fascinating area that we visit on some of our Antarctic Peninsula cruises. 8. There is a blood-red subglacial lake. A weird phenomena was noticed in 1911 on a distant glacier in East Antarctica. The Taylor Glacier's lily-white ice was being dyed a deep red by water coming from deep within the glacier. For many years, the source of the red color was unknown until scientists claimed in 2017 that they had uncovered the cause. The water flowing from within the glacier came from a subglacial lake rich in salt and oxidized iron, and when it came into contact with oxygen, the iron rusted, giving the water a distinctive red hue and giving the waterfall its name, Blood Falls. 9. Antarctica is governed by its own treaty. Antarctica was the only continent without an indigenous population when humans first saw it in 1820. Several nations immediately staked claims to the continent, causing severe conflict. While some governments claimed that Antarctica was legitimately theirs, others were vehemently opposed. As the tension grew, everyone agreed that a peaceful settlement was required. The Antarctic Treaty was signed in December 1959 by 12 countries as an extraordinary international pact to administer the continent as a reserve for peace and science. Since then, 41 other countries have signed the treaty and attend annual meetings to decide how human activity in Antarctica should be controlled. All Antarctic Treaty System decisions are determined by consensus, with collaboration and agreement serving as essential foundations. The Antarctic Treaty System now includes rigorous limitations for commercial fishing and sealing, as well as a complete ban on mining and mineral exploration. 10. Diamond dust is suspended in the air. Despite the low precipitation levels in Antarctica, meteorological wonders abound, and diamond dust is one of them. Diamond dust is composed of microscopic ice crystals that form in damp air near the Earth's surface. It's similar to an icy fog. Sunlight causes ice crystals hovering in the air to shimmer, generating a sparkling effect that like a million tiny floating diamonds. Beautiful optical phenomena such as sundogs, halos, and light pillars are also caused by diamond dust. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video.